This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with amazing humans who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and I'm super excited to have David Kramer, the president of global talent agency UTA, on today's episode. David started in the mailroom at UTA over 30 years ago, and he's going to share his inspiring journey to the top, providing a fascinating inside look at the dramatic changes reshaping entertainment along the way. If you're looking for brilliant insights on representing top talent, thriving amidst industry disruption, and the keys to sustained success, you found the right pod. David, how are you?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
Dave, I got to tell you, I feel like we're long-lost brothers, but you're a lot more successful than I am because we both started on the bottom and we made it to the top. Me, not so topish as you, but you started the mailroom at UTA. I was an intern at my radio station, worked my way up to executive producer and co-host of the morning show, but you worked your way up from that mailroom to the top of the top running UTA. What an amazing story. When is the David Kramer movie being greenlit?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I don't think there's a movie in the works anytime soon.
Take me back to those early days, because I was just, before we got on and chatted, I was like thinking back, the goofy stuff I was doing. Like I was driving around in a van, handing out T-shirts. I was getting coffee for people. What were some of those early assignments you worked on back, if you can remember that far back, Dave? I don't know how you remember this.
So I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida. I went to undergrad at University of Georgia. I was lucky enough to work on a TV movie of the week between my junior and senior year of college in Atlanta, Georgia. Just to point out how much things have changed over the past 30 plus years, it was the only movie shooting in Atlanta that summer. And it was a $4 million TV movie of the week. But what was great about it, and obviously Atlanta's become, a hotbed of production, is that when you work on a small movie like that and you're working 6 days a week, you are surrounded by people who are doing things that you have an interest in. And I was able to ask a lot of people, how do you get into the movie business? And a lot of people said, well, you should try to get to California, and maybe you should think about film school since you don't know what you want to do. So I was lucky enough to apply and get accepted to USC Film School. That got me to LA. When I was graduating and trying to figure out what I was going to do next, it looked to me like a lot of successful people, whether they were agents anymore or not, had started in agency mailrooms. So I did what a lot of young people do. I sent, back then, no email. I was sending letters, sending some faxes, going to Kinko's and sending those faxes. And I was lucky enough to get a job at a brand new boutique literary agency that had just started called United Talent Agency. And I started in the mailroom. There were 50 people at the entire company when I started. We were on one floor. It was incredible. It was really my first real job because I'd gone right from college to graduate school with some internships in between. And I got to be part of, we didn't use the terminology then, but it was the equivalent of a startup. That was July 27th, 1992, so almost 32 years ago. And we were a small agency, but small agencies could really thrive. And we were all about representing new voices. We were all about writers and directors and getting people's careers started. And you could do that and do quite well in the 90s when the business was in a very different place. And I loved it. But I started in the mailroom, and in the mailroom, you did everything. You did everything from literally delivering mail, delivering packages, to copying scripts, to, yes, filling up people's cars with gas and picking up dry cleaning. And people would go to visit clients all over the world, and I would be the guy to go get things that those clients wanted. It was the classic mailroom story. I was fortunate enough to get out of the mailroom after a few months, worked for one of the founders of the agency, Peter Benedek. He was a great boss. I worked for him for a year and then went on to work for another agent in the motion picture lit division named John Lesher, who was an incredible agent and very supportive of me getting promoted. And then I became an agent in, oddly, April 1st, 1995. I always thought they did it on April Fool's so they could take it away.
Oh, that's awesome. What a great story. Thank you for sharing it. I'm sure you've told it 1,000 times, so I appreciate you 1,001 times sharing it. That TV movie you did in Atlanta, who were the leads? Do you remember? I'm just curious, what kind of lead you had in that?
It was actually great. It was called Murder in Mississippi. It was a prequel to Mississippi Burning, the movie that had been made with Gene Hackman and Willem Dafoe, among others. So this movie was a prequel to that movie, and it starred Tom Holtz, who was off of Amadeus and Dominic and Eugene,
yep.
Jennifer Grey off Dirty Dancing, Josh Charles, who had just done Dead Poets Society, and Blair Underwood, who was on hiatus from the original LA Law before they remade LA Law 30 years later. And the Wolpers, David Wolper and his son Mark Wolper, produced that movie. So it was what they called an event television movie of the week, but it was a really cool, hot cast back in 1989.
Wow. That's awesome. I'm glad you remember that. I mean, what a cast. Jesus. And I wonder, what was your self-awareness like back then? Did you realize like, this is really cool? Or were you just so, as a young kid, man, I'm just scrapping here. I'm just trying to get done. Were you aware of how cool the situation you were in?
You know what? I was. I mean, I was clueless, like any 20-year-old is at that time. But at the same time, it was something that I had always been interested in. And when, like I was saying, when you work on a movie, you have to be a TV movie. They're shooting 6 days a week. I was opening the production office. I was closing the production office. I was driving, picking up actors from set or the airport. I was back then you took the film reels to the airport and they had this thing called Delta Dash that would ship it on a plane, the film reels to then be properly processed in Los Angeles. I had all these opportunities to talk to all these incredible people, actors, directors, producers, all the different people on the crew. And so it was really fun. I really felt like I was part of something. I also, once we were in production, I was opening the office at 7:00 every morning, and I didn't close that office until they were done wrapping. Sometimes that was 12 midnight. So I was getting very little sleep, and I loved every minute of it. And what was really great is when I went back to my senior year, and I only took 3 classes a semester, I realized I was in class 3 hours a day versus I had just been working these 18-hour days. It was a breeze. My senior year felt like a vacation. But yeah, I was really thrilled with it. And funny story, I because Atlanta and Georgia was still a small market at that point in terms of production, I got a call right before that movie wrapped from another television series that was shooting in Covington, Georgia. And they offered me a job to be a PA, and they offered me a nice weekly salary and a company car. And I called my folks and I said, I think I may have to drop out my senior year because I'm going to get to, they begged me not to do that, which I didn't end up doing. But that was nice. That was a nice acknowledgement of having done what I think was good work to where they had made that call from another production. So, and I realized that's how the business worked. You had to work well with others, work your butt off, and good opportunities would follow.
That's so cool. And it's funny, like you mentioned, actually doing the work, because I remember a few years ago, me and my friend made this short film, financed ourselves, and we're like, we learned more shooting this movie for like 2 months than anyone ever can in film school. And I'm sure you learn stuff in film school, but until you're actually on the ground making it, it's like, that's the real shit right there, David.
No, it was great. And you feel like you're a part of a team, and it ended up being a really good project, good movie. So that was really exciting. That was a really exciting time. And look, and going out to USC and all of a sudden being surrounded by, I went to the Peter Stark motion picture producing program. It was a 25-person program. And I was then surrounded by young people who wanted to do what I wanted to do. And a lot of them had gone to a lot fancier schools than me. And so I was a little intimidated, but as time went by, we made short films together and we learned all the different jobs in the business. And I had a great internship at Paramount. It was supposed to be 2 months. It luckily turned into 6 months. So I was doing that while I was going to school. It was a really fun time for me. And that led me into this opportunity at United Talent Agency.
Wow. Sounds like a blast. I don't know if you've ever run into Stu Weiss, who runs Studio City, that promo house that does all the video promos. I worked on a show with him called Dish Nation a few years ago, and he would choose the content each day. It was like radio stations from across the country, and they would feature it that night. And our show would get cut all the time. And I would be like, Stu, what's going on? Why aren't we making the cut? And he goes, listen, you guys aren't trending on Twitter. I'm going to go by what Twitter says to put on the show. And I'm like, but Stu, you've been in show business for 20 years. Who cares what Twitter says? He goes, listen, I've worked with a lot of people that are dinosaurs that refuse to change their ways. And he said to me, I'm never going to be a dinosaur. I'm going to ride the wave. I'm going to keep up with the Joneses. And I feel that sort of encapsulates your career in a nutshell, David, because over these 30 years, man, I'm sure you've seen it all. You have seen it all from, you talk about celluloid and shipping it in the mail to now in the digital era where we're actually able to stream any movie we ever want and that's ever been made. Talk about the in terms of keeping up with technology and trends, because That's not easy because a lot of people, comfort is comfort. We like being comfortable doing what we're doing. Change sucks. Obviously, you've been able to grasp change and really thrive with it. Tell me about that.
So when I started at UTA, like I said, we really had three departments. We represented writers and directors for movies and television and actors. And we very quickly got to a place, a few years in, which we had a good business. It was a small business. There were significant competitors out there in the world. And we thought about how do we make sure that we become a company of a certain size and scale and resources that would allow us to represent anybody. And the only way to do that was to expand the suite of services that we as a company were able to offer for our clients. One, for client attraction and signings, and two, for client retention. And so we decided to really start to make investments in the future of the agency and what a modern day talent agency was going to look like. And if you just stuck to your knitting, we were going to be limiting ourselves, our agents and executives, and certainly our clients. So we, early days, decided to get into, obviously, the independent film department, which was a great way for us to start representing some of the amazing artists that we represent. We started the book department. We started an unscripted department. We were the first agency, and we were made fun of, to start a digital department when people said, how are you going to make money on the internet? And obviously that's changed quite a bit. And we really started to make investments in the company in things that we thought were important add-ons to the suite of services and important to the ecosystem that we were all going to be living in the years ahead. And so whether that was digital, whether that was podcasting, whether it was our move into news and speakers and music and sports and all these things, we started to see that the more we added on, the more opportunities it created for our clients, for our agents, to be able to build out the opportunities for the agency and our business and our clients. And what you've seen over the past few years is not just this dramatic evolution in the film and television business, but the collision between film and TV, sports, music, comedy, touring, all these different things. And that's been an amazing thing to be a part of, because in the old days, a lot of clients kind of stayed in their lane, and now clients and agents are more ambitious than ever. They want to touch all different parts of the ecosystem. And because of the platform that we've built out over the past now 30 plus years, we're able to be an agency that provides the full suite of services for any client, whether they want to do one or two things, or any client who want to do 10 or 15 things. And that's something we're really, really proud of. Those things don't come without challenges. They don't come without cost. They don't come without some failure. But that old saying, you never learned anything from winning. You gotta take some shots and fall down a little bit, but you also learn a lot from those experiences, and they do get you into situations with your executives or other business lines that lead to a lot of times great success down the road.
And let's talk about some of that diversification, because I'm old enough to remember, and so are you, Dave, that if you're a movie person, you did movies. If you TV, you did TV. Music, everything was solid out. And like you mentioned, it's Ghostbusters. Everyone's crossing the path. How do you keep up with that in terms of expertise? Because at the end of the day, even though people like to diversify, you can't be an expert in everything. So tell me about that level of expertise.
I think that really speaks to the culture of the company, in that a lot of our growth has been organic growth. And then, especially over the past decade, a lot of our growth has been through M&A. For us to decide we want to start a newscaster's agency, for example, we could try to do it ourselves. It's been years and years and years, and we still would be so far behind the company that we ended up acquiring, Beanstalk, which has now been with us for almost a decade. They are the dominant force in newscasters, representing people like Anderson Cooper, David Muir, Chuck Todd, and Nora O'Donnell, just to name a few. And so they are experts in their field. And so how do we bring them in and give they and their clients that they represented at the time the full benefit of the UTA platform, and how can UTA benefit from their expertise in their field? We did the same thing, our partnership with Rich Paul and Clutch Sports. He's an expert in his field, and because we had Rich and his team, he has been able to build out a sports agency that went from an NBA expert to a bunch of football experts to a bunch of baseball experts and on and on and on. So sometimes you can do it through organic growth, and sometimes you try to go out and either hire or acquire experts in a field. And the key is then making sure the integration between those people and those companies with the larger UTA platform is as seamless as possible and culturally additive to both parties.
Let's talk about the word talent. It's part of your name. It's part of what you do. But I always feel like the word talent has changed, whereas when we were younger, it was talent were like movie stars, TV stars. Now everybody has talent. Regardless of what kind of skill, it's a talent. But what's changed is dealing with talent. With talent, everyone is completely different. Everyone's treated differently. Tell me about the soft skills of an agent and being able to manage talent, because that's one of the things I've always prided myself on, like being able to work with talent, where some people, I'll see people like struggle with it because they're like, well, why do I have to get there 15 minutes early? Can't I just get there at the same time as they do? Like, no, you get there early. But some people have trouble grasping that. Tell me about that soft skill of managing talent.
Well, first of all, I agree with you 100%. The definition of talent has really changed. And whether you're an actor or a music star or a digital star or a comedian or an author, whatever. So the definition has expanded so greatly. I love artists. I grew up loving all sorts of entertainment. I think someone waking up one day and saying, I want to be an artist, whether that's a writer, a director, an actor, a comedian, a musician, whatever that might be, the courage it takes to say that and then try to pursue that. It's like, I always joke, like, I like to play basketball. For me to say I'd like to play in the NBA, well, that's not going to happen ever. So the odds of these artists who do what they do and are so gifted and so unique and so special to achieve what these people achieve, it's an incredible skill. And I so admire that. Artists look at the world through a very different lens, not all, and a million different ways. So I think that for agents to understand their clients, that connection you have to your clients, there's not just the I know how to do this and I have experience. There's a chemistry that comes with the relationship between a representative and an artist, a star. And there's no one way to do it, but you have to have a certain level of understanding about who they are, what they do, what makes them special, how to communicate about them, and also how to make them feel comfortable, because that word representative, we are their representative. We represent them in the world. So you have to be able, not just to be able to communicate to the world about them, but to communicate to the star themselves. And that chemistry is different person to person. So a certain level of EQ, I think, for the best representatives is required. Whether you're talking to a musician, whether you're talking to an actor, whether you're talking to an athlete, those skills, I think, are required to be the best representatives that you can be.
I always say, whether you're the hairdresser, whether you're the manager, whether you're the cook for the talent, your job is to put that person in a position to succeed so that they don't have to think about any of that shit. They don't have to think about if their hair is out of place, whether my kid's got to get picked up from school. Like, that, you are putting them in a position to be 100% invested in that moment when they're creating art.
I think that the agent's job, although it's changed a lot over the past several years, because you don't necessarily have to be an expert in every field, but you have to understand all those different verticals and ways that your client can touch all those different pieces of the business, and make sure my dad always used to say, you don't have to be the guy with all the answers, you just need to know where to find them. And so at a company like mine, where we have a lot of experts in all these different parts of our company, I have lots of people I can talk to and find those answers. I think that communicating with an artist and understanding who they are and what makes them feel comfortable with, not just with you, but what's going on in their business life, and taking that out of their brain as much as possible so they can focus on their craft, is critical. And I think it's critical. I look at what we do as both a business and creative partnership with our clients, and always trying to think how many different ways we can think about them and provide them with as many options as possible, to the point where they can't take all those options. But I think that's an important thing for clients to know, that their agent is thinking even more ambitiously than they're thinking about themselves.
Sweet. And I know UTA, you obviously get a lot of headlines for your movie and TV work, but man, your literary department is just killing it these days. I mean, there's literally like a UTA bestseller like every week. So let's give them a little love because this is the Forward Books podcast. Tell me about your books and all the folks working in the literary division.
So we started our literary division, publishing division about 7 years ago. It was a small but mighty group. We found to have, because of the platform and the kinds of people that we represented, I, not being a publishing agent, didn't necessarily see the fruit tree that UTA was for people with a different kind of eye. And they just saw books everywhere. And all of a sudden, our publishing business really started to explode. So I took a real interest in that, to the point where one of our big acquisitions almost 2 years ago now was the Curtis Brown agency in the UK. A significant piece of their business is publishing. They've been around for 125 years. And I saw an opportunity not just to expand our global footprint in a market that was important, which was the UK, and have a company that was truly authentic to that place, which I think is critical when you think about expansion. How are you going to succeed? Is you got to have people who feel authentic to the place. And Curtis Brown being the oldest agency in the UK, certainly that was undeniable. But also because of their book business, I saw an opportunity with that for us. And that thesis has really proved out over the past 2 years. On top of that, I thought we needed to add a little bit more scale on the US side. So we bought a company called the Fletcher Company, which is Christy Fletcher's company. And that was another group of wonderful literary agents. What we've seen between putting Fletcher together with UTA and our great relationship with Curtis Brown has been explosive. And it's been really incredible to see, not just on the publishing side, but the services we can provide to both parties, to the rest of the larger UTA, how it's impacted our media rights group, what we used to call book to film. So in terms of the ancillary opportunities with some of the author's work across movies, television, documentaries, etc. And that's been a great, not even 2-year relationship, but really seeing terrific results there.
And talk about that adaptation pipeline. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like there's more and more book adaptations happening in this day and age. Maybe not, but it's just, and you probably know better than I would, but I feel like every time you tune on, whether you're any of the streamers or even broadcasts or and obviously films, it's always an adaptation from a book. Am I just reading that incorrectly, or is that true?
Look, I think, it's no secret that a lot of these buyers want some type of intellectual property to anchor their projects. And a lot of that's been big movies like the Marvel franchises or the Lucas franchises or sequels and remakes and things like that. Books have a following. Successful books have a lot of people who fall in love with those books or fall in love with an author who's written a number of books. And so they do have a certain stamp of approval already from a certain community. And you see, some of the ones we've been involved with recently, Lessons in Chemistry, our client, or Curtis Brown's client, Bonnie Garmis, that turned into a very successful series for Apple. That became a really huge hit book for Bonnie. We also had, most recently, I think, One Day, another book, that became, another book we were involved with through Curtis Brown. That was another project turned into a hit series. So you're seeing a lot of projects take books and convert them into movies or television show. Most recently, Amazon just dropped a movie last week. Our client, Michael Showalter, directed it, called The Idea of You.
Oh, the Anne Hathaway movie.
That just came out. I went to the premiere of that in New York last week, and they filled that audience clearly with a bunch of people who had read that book because they were going insane. And so I think that that's a great example of taking great intellectual property that isn't necessarily remaking another movie or a brand like a Marvel or a Lucas movie, and using that IP as a launch pad for a film or television. So we're seeing a lot of that and a real interest in that from both the film and TV side.
And look, a couple of businessy things. So how do you keep up with the business side of the whiplash of it? And I'll bring up an example of it is, I remember a few years ago when the streaming wars started, like, we don't care how much money you're spending. We don't care how much money you're losing. We want subscribers. Then Wall Street woke up one day like, oh yeah, we don't care about that. Are you profitable? And then all of a sudden you saw this crash. Obviously Netflix won the war, if there was an actual war. And now you're seeing everyone cut back. You're seeing, Iger just the other day said, we're going to do only 2 Disney Plus shows, whereas 5 years ago, we're going to have like a new show on every month. How do you keep up with that in terms of like your clients? Because your clients were probably like a few years ago, like, oh, this is great for us. There's going to be all these battles for rights. There's going to be jobs for talent. And now all of a sudden you're seeing this contraction. Tell me about how that's affecting your day to day.
Look, whiplash is a great way to describe it. I mean, you think about the past 4 or 5 years, we had a pandemic, we had streaming wars, we had WGA and SAG strike last year, and then somewhat simultaneously, we saw what looks like a pullback in film and television, not to mention consolidation across the industry. And it's not over yet, it appears. The longer you've been doing it, you realize our business it goes through cycles. I believe that premium entertainment and truly talented people are always going to thrive in our business. It might look and feel different at times, but I really believe that people actually want to, because of technology, some people could say, oh, the business has gotten more difficult because of technology. And in other ways, it's gotten expansive. You can watch on your phone, you can watch on your computer, you can watch on your iPad, you can go to the movies still. I mean, what's available to you, not to mention, not even talking about audio and all the different things that people can do now. People are watching and listening more than ever. The issue is there's more choices, there's more competition. So I think the cream does rise to the top, in my opinion. That being said, we got to be smart about our business. We got to be smart about how we're advising our clients, where they should put their time and energy and their talent. And I think the agents here at UTA, we've really emphasized understanding the full opportunities available to clients, because you're going to have these ups and downs. Any career does, any business does, and there's always change. A lot of people, when it comes to change, they get very nervous. What I have found is change can be really exciting, really engaging, create new challenges and opportunities. And I've seen that with the way our clients are operating, the way they're thinking creatively. And so I'm really excited about the future. I'm really excited about the future opportunities. Does that mean there won't be some bumps and bruises along the way because of some of what's going on in our industry in this very minute, where a lot of these companies that we sell to are going through, whether it's their stock price or what's their streaming goals versus theatrical business, and how many shows are we going from 550 to 400, and what will that mean? But I do believe that if you do good work, that you're going to always do really well. You're going to have a good financial rewards for that, a great creative experience. And I think that the people who want it to be the way it's been are going to ultimately be the ones who are going to have the hardest time succeeding. And so what I like about this place is it has a real innovative entrepreneurial spirit that we emphasize, underscore, encourage every day. And to see our agents working across so many different lines of the company is, I think, one of the most exciting things for me anyway, about my job here.
That's sweet. And I'm not sure if you want to answer this or not, but I want to get your take on it if you can. There's a possibility we may be down to 4 major movie studios if Sony and Paramount decide to join forces. You mentioned contraction. To me, as a consumer, I'm like, that's not good. That's not good to have less options. For someone who's in the middle of making this stuff, does it worry you, the idea of going from these 5 legacy studios to 4?
My preference would be to have more buyers, not less. More options, not less. Right. More competition, not less. And I think that when these things happen, it creates opportunities for other companies to come into the market. Not too long ago, Netflix wasn't here, Apple wasn't here, Hulu wasn't here. There's constantly changes afoot. And I think that water finds its level. And I think that getting to too few buyers is not necessarily the best thing for our industry. I think there's going to be other doors opening and other opportunities for development and production and distribution across our industry outside of 4 big buyers at the end of the day. I do believe that. But I understand why that makes people uncomfortable and nervous, and I'm one of them.
Okay, all right, last one. We started this conversation talking about this remarkable 30-year career you've had, and we're in a young man's game or young girl's game. Like, it's, we're in those few businesses where it's like, you start to show a little gray, get the hell out. And so for someone listening to this who's been in an industry for a long time and they're feeling, the air behind them, like, oh, who's someone coming right behind you? What do you give for advice for longevity in the world of entertainment, or actually any industry? Like, to have that, obviously you've got the energy that you had as a 20-year-old. Maybe you're not able to have those 18-hour days anymore, but like, what kind of advice do you have for folks when it comes to career longevity?
I love that question, actually, because a lot of times people ask me after 30 years, what is it like to work at the same company? And I say, I don't work at the same company. When I worked at this company, we had 3 divisions. Now we have 53 divisions. I didn't know anything about so many of the things that I oversee today. I think doing the same thing over and over again for 30 years, yeah, I probably wouldn't be as engaged as I am, but I don't. I get to use that experience and use those relationships that I've developed, and I've expanded into other areas of our industry, things that didn't exist in our industry when I started in our industry. And that's really kept me engaged. It's gotten to learn about the UK, to learn about publishing, to learn about podcasting, to learn about theater, to just participate in all the M&A activities over the past 10 years, to see all these new people come in and learn from them. And hopefully they see it as me mentoring them at times as well. I think being in a vibrant, growing organization that has expanded to the way we've expanded in an industry that continues to reinvent itself. I'm a language guy. I always encourage people here, speak as many languages, and I'm speaking figuratively, of course, as possible. Learn about different facets of our industry, learn about different facets of our company. You do that, more doors will open up, more opportunities will come your way. You will be engaged, and you will be more attracted to our business and more attractive to potential clients and business opportunities. And I think that's how you keep the energy up. And that's what's so exciting about my company after all these years. So that's what I say to people. And remember the basics, remember the fundamentals and what we do for a living, which is we represent artists who do what they do. Very few people can do what they do. Never, never rest on your laurels around that part of the job. But I think expanding your brain and your expertise and your relationships only inures to their benefit in the long run. So this company and what I do for a living is a gift, in that I was always afraid when I thought about taking a job, would I be bored in whatever job that was? I've never been bored a day in my life at UTA and what I do here. So I feel really fortunate.
Awesome. His name is David Kramer, president and board member of UTA. David, this has been an awesome chat. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.
And that'll do it for another Forbes Books podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can always connect with me on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila or on TikTok at J Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.